Hello, my name is Sudhiti Gautam, and today I would be telling you the story of La Oroya, Peru. The main objective or purpose of this presentation is to discuss the background and the events that had occurred in the past that made La Oroya, Peru as one of the most polluted places in the world. I would also be giving an insight about the harmful effects of the chemicals distributed across the area. Along with it, I would be providing an overview on the health dynamics of the population of the city. Furthermore, I would be discussing some policy changes that have occurred over time and how these policies have reformed the condition of the people living in the area. I would begin my presentation by discussing the events that had occurred in the past that made La Oroya what it is today. Furthermore, I would be discussing about the lead mine production levels both in world and in Peru. I would also be talking about the elevated levels of toxic metals in the region and how these levels of toxic metals have actually affected the health of the population in the region. I would be discussing the changes and reforms made in the policies over time and how these reforms have actually uplifted the condition of the people living in the region. I would then be summarizing my presentation. La Oroya has been identified as one of the most polluted sites in the world by Time magazine. La Oroya is a town of around 35,000 inhabitants located in Peruvian Andes. The area is rich in lead, copper, zinc, silver, and gold. The extraction and smelting of these metals has been La Oroya's primary economic activity for decades. La Oroya mining complex was owned by the Peruvian government until 1997. It was then sold to Doran Company, which is the largest producer of lead in US. La Oroya mining complex is now known as Doran, Peru. Since 1997, Peru has been one of the top producers of lead in the world. The graph here shows the lead mine production from 2010 to 2019. It is very much evident by looking at this graph that Peru is one of the top producers of lead in the world after China and Australia. According to the reports of 2018, it was being observed that Peru contributes about 6.2% in the lead production worldwide, after China and Australia, who contributes around 44.9 and 10% respectively. The graph here depicts the lead production levels in Peru from 2010 to 2019. However, the lead production levels before the span were also extremely high. In 1999, the Peruvian Ministry of Health found that 99.1% of the children in La Oroya suffered from lead poisoning, and 20% of these children needed urgent medical care due to extremely high blood lead levels. The elevated toxic metal levels in La Oroya had become a serious problem. The people of the region had to make a difficult choice and choose between the well-being of themselves and their family members versus the economic benefits that they received from the company Doran Peru. The map here shows the location of the company Doran Peru in the region of La Oroya. By looking at this map, we can clearly tell that this company is located in the central portion of the town. Because of this central location, this company has successfully polluted the entire town, including the soil, water, and air of the region. This graph shows the elevated blood lead levels in the residents of La Oroya. The percentages of children with elevated blood lead levels are extremely high. 97% of children between 6 months and 6 years of age and 98% of children between 7 and 12 years of age have elevated blood lead levels. Also, there are 71% of children between 13 and 18 years of age and 69% of residents over the age of 18 who have elevated blood lead levels. According to CDC, an elevated level is any level equal to or greater than 10 micrograms of lead per deciliter of blood. Apart from lead, the levels of other metals such as arsenic and cadmium are also pretty high in the region of La Oroya. According to a report of 2002 entitled "La Oroya Cannot Wait", it was reported that along with lead, arsenic, cadmium, suspended particles and sulfur dioxide exceed international acceptable levels and pose serious health risks to the community. All these metals, whose levels are extremely high in the region of La Oroya, pose a serious health threat to the population of the region. The metals such as lead, arsenic and cadmium causes various sorts of cancer, respiratory problems, kidney failures, coma and ultimately death. These health threats jeopardizes the intellectual development of children. The long-term effects in terms of future productivity signifies that the income for these people and quality of life shall be devastating. The consequences for the society include an increase in the cost of healthcare, reduction in national productivity, which consequently affects the sustainable development. Because of the serious health threats faced by the population of La Oroya due to the elevated levels of toxic metals, there has been majorly two policy changes in due course of time. First, there was a forced investment in environmental improvements that Doran made in 2007 after several extensions granted by the Peruvian government to reduce the contamination. The second policy change occurred in 2009 when Doran filed for bankruptcy and halted all mining and smelter operations. The legal environmental battle with Peruvian government together with the financial pressures from the creditors and fall in the metal prices forced the company to close. These policy changes proved to be extremely beneficial in terms of environmental improvements. It was reported by the Peruvian Ministry of Energy and Mines that the levels of lead in air reduced in 2007 and 8 as depicted in this graph. The policy changes also led to the reduction in copper production in the region. Without the emissions from smelter, people are now breathing clean air. Children are not facing day-to-day exposures to contamination. However, most people in La Oroya, because of the financial crisis, want the smelter to reopen, but with adequate environmental controls installed first. To summarize, I'd like to mention the fact that the mining industry has left a long-lasting impact on the population of La Oroya. Children and the residents in the region may have to wait for decades to experience a normal and a healthy life. However, people still want the mining complex to reopen because of the financial and economic issues. People in the region today have access to more information than they did in the past, which will help them understand this complex situation. Many have been put in a difficult position because they have to defend the source of their livelihood, and on the other hand, they face the issue of contamination of themselves and their families. However, apart from this, continuous monitoring of environmental and health effects of the region is certainly required. Thank you for your time and listening to this presentation.